The River Nile, which flows across Egypt and is portrayed in blue to the south of the country on maps and is one of the country's most notable natural attractions. The river's route also contains some of the most recognized ruins of ancient pyramids, including some of the most recognizable remains of the Great Pyramid of Giza. These ancient artifacts of the past are what give Egypt a historical story, and they are still in use today. As experts continue to unearth new findings in Egypt, it is becoming clear that pyramids are not the only ancient artifacts that can be found in that country. There are a few that are a little disturbing to watch. So what new things did scientists discover? And how will it affect history? Stay tuned. Academics have discovered a plethora of structures, documents, and works of art in Egypt, which is one of the world's oldest civilizations. The modern-day country of Egypt, on the other hand, remains a fascinating place to visit, despite the fact that the rulers of civilizations have changed throughout time, as has the writing of languages, the temperature, religion, and the boundaries of the country. The Egyptians traded goods, religions, food, and ideas with people all around the world from the prehistoric era and into the modern age. In ancient times, Egypt was invaded by a number of different nations, despite the fact that it was once the most powerful country on the planet. Furthermore, Egypt has been referred to using a number of various names throughout history. In the ancient Egyptian language, it is referred to as Kemet. There are a variety of other theories as to why the word Feroza came to be used to refer to fertilized land in Egypt, but is generally accepted that the word is derived from the fertile soil that was left behind following a flood from the Nile. Given the Egyptian origins of the name Pharaoh, wouldn't you be curious to learn what it means in this context? The enormous scale of the Egyptian pyramids represents the importance of the pharaohs in ancient Egyptian society, and it is considered to be one of the most magnificent man-made structures in history because of its precision and beauty. They were thought to have been chosen by the gods themselves to act as a link between them and humans on Earth. It is worth noting that the pyramids were so intimately identified with the monarchs that they were portrayed by smooth angled sides, which symbolized the sun's rays. This aided in the ascension of the royal spirit into heaven and into a union with the gods. According to popular belief, when an ancient Egyptian monarch died, a portion of his spirit, known as Ka, remained with his body, and because people wanted to make sure that the king's spirit was properly cared for in the afterlife, his corpse was mummified, and everything he would require in the afterlife was buried with him. Pyramids were built in Egypt during the Ptolemaic period, which lasted from the beginning of the Old Kingdom to the end of the 4th century AD when the Old Kingdom was dissolved. The construction of the pyramids reached its zenith during the late 3rd dynasty and continued until the early 6th dynasty around 2325 BC. The Giza Pyramid, which is located in Egypt, is one of the most well-known of the world's pyramids. King Khufu, one of Egypt's most ancient pharaohs, is supposed to have been buried here, and the structure, which rises 140 meters high and 230 meters long, bears his name. And at the time of its construction, the Giza Pyramid included 3 known chambers: the King's Room, the Queen's Room, and a subterranean chamber that appears to be unfinished. The pyramid also contained the Grand Gallery, a 47-meter-long corridor that led to the King's Chamber. Scientists are analyzing the internal construction of the pyramid to see if there are any previously uncovered rooms, cavities, openings, or passages that they may use to access the inside. Cosmic ray muography is a technique used by astronomers to study the universe. Using these techniques, scientists can study the past and the structure of pyramids. Some areas were visibly devoid of life, and what should have been solid rocks were hollowed instead, causing more questions than they answered in the process. They discovered a big void that was between 30 and 40 meters in length. The existence of a secret room and an obviously hallowed area was a puzzle to the scientists, with some believing that it housed another tomb or maybe a hidden treasure. Beyond the fact that the Giza Pyramid is virtually devoid of the objects that people are buried with, scholars were puzzled by how tomb robbers were prevented from gaining access to the massive vacuum that existed within the construction. Some of the mysteries of ancient Egypt are still to be discovered, and some are not for the faint of heart. Work on a new apartment building in a famous Mediterranean port city was interrupted when a worker discovered a black granite formation 16 feet below the surface. The 2,000-year-old burial chamber quickly gained popularity on the internet. This was until the gruesome sight of 3 skeletal remains floating in the water, which prompted locals to assume that the water had medicinal or even supernatural properties, that they began to believe in its healing powers. They were unearthed and cracked open despite fears that doing so would unleash an ancient curse, or that it could have contained the remains of Alexander the Great, who founded the city. Some people believe the unusual coloring indicated the presence of a metal such as mercury. Dr. Mustafa, the General Secretary of the Supreme Council of Antiquities, dismissed the beliefs right away, alleging they belonged to a military commander. An arrow may have struck one of the skulls, according to a statement released by Egypt's Ministry of Antiquities, indicating that the bones may have been those of military commanders. So what exactly was this medicinal and supernatural properties tale all about? Do you believe this had any type of supernatural meaning to it at all? Unfortunately, authorities have revealed that the liquid in question was not mercury or any kind of medicinal juice, but rather something far stranger. Some of the skeletal remains were partially destroyed as a result of water from a neighboring building leaking into one of the fractures in the coffin and destroying the bones. And what about the omens associated with discovering a tomb that has been buried for thousands of years? It is possible that this specific coffin did not contain any curses. If you were under the impression that light bulbs were a relatively new invention, well, you'd be mistaken. It is plausible, though, that our forefathers possessed something similar to this, based on recent archaeological finds in Egypt. Let's take a trip to the ancient Egyptian city of Dendera, where the ancient Egyptians adored displaying text on their walls. Studies have discovered evidence of the ancient Egyptians being familiar with light bulbs, including an illustration of a bulb-like device in Dender's text, which have equated to a Crookes tube or an early light bulb. A wavy line that simulates the petals of a lotus flower can be seen inside the bulbs, which have the socket of the bulb visible within them. The air deity is portrayed bending before a little box, which appears to be connected via what looks to be an electrical wire. Other drawings include a DJ'd column with 2 arms, a monkey with 2 blades, and a wavy line, among other things. Upon first sighting these things, Eric von Daniken assumed that what he saw resembled the filament of an old electric light bulb, and that the DJ'd pillar served as an insulating layer. The baboon appears to have served as a cautionary in terms of how technology should be utilized correctly. Even though there are significant arguments, was it really a light source? As a consequence of a number of hypotheses and discussions, the light bulb, according to others, is actually a lotus flower bowl, mythologically giving birth to a god. This was because an image of a lotus flower with a snake in the center is depicted in the second panel, which is the sign of another god, and the southern wall of the last room was decorated with an image of a lotus bloom with a serpent emerging from it and riding a boat. The true meaning of the Dender light is still a mystery to this day. The hundreds of ancient sites in Egypt have yet to yield any unambiguous evidence of electrical artifacts, much less light bulbs, according to archaeologists who have searched these countries' archaeological sites. As we wrap up, which of the ancient Egyptian secrets did you find the most interesting and why? Comment below. Also, go through the channel for even more videos of this nature. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time.